meeting ID followed by pound.
Oh, there's Linda. So some of you were with us before and know what we've been working on. To recap that a little bit, we're very focused on news literacy. We're actually the PR team of the Larimer League, and we all had an interest in it because we deal with newspapers, and a lot of us, that's just what we enjoyed with our careers and as part of the PR team. And news literacy is, we felt, really one of the hot topics of the time. Disinformation, misinformation, and our ability to navigate it, because it's done differently in other parts of the world. So since we were last on with League of Colorado, I made a Survey Monkey, which I put the link to it in our chat. And Linda Hutchinson's going to put it up on screen so we can look at it together. But of course, you can't fill it out on a Zoom screen. So if you want to fill it out with us, you can click to open your own window and do it. But we were thinking we could give you 2 weeks to answer it if you want to spend some time with it. It's easy. It will only take a couple minutes, but you might want to ask some of your leaguers to help you answer the questions.
And we can easily send this out to all attendees tomorrow, the link as well. FYI.
Okay. So the first one we hope would cover where you are. Hopefully I've covered bases there on what type of league that you're serving. And we'll probably serve this to leagues who are not even in attendance tonight. We're trying to see if there's enough good information that we could clearly say that news outlets are declining in our state or only in some areas, and which type areas. So then the second question is on population, and that's just a drop down. So we know if you're, Denver or Montrose. Of course, those are entirely different types of communities. And then it gets a little more difficult. How many local news sources does your community have? And this one you might put out to your league for discussion on what you're going to count as a news source. And we're thinking that it's news that would apply to voters. So when in question, if you're like, well, I don't know, does the high school radio matter? If it would help a voter make a decision, then yes. If it's just a style magazine, probably not, unless everybody really relies on a calendar that magazine has. So that's some guidance there. Daily newspaper, some of us have them, some not. If you're in the Denver market, you've probably got more than one. And number 5, here is another discussion amongst your leaguers about, do you know of papers that have changed? They've been sold, they've changed. You can see my options there. And you could check, I don't know, but I'm hoping that you'll ask your leaguers to jog their memories on what has happened in your community, because this is the sort of answer that we can use to compile good information for us. Number 6, has anything been replaced? And that's another conversation you can have with leaguers. And if it kind of gets into the weeds and you think that there's an answer, but you're not sure it's the right, of course, you can just email that to us and we'll work with that information as best we're able. Number 7, is there a library or free public access like community radio for news? That's important to include everybody. Diversity, equity, inclusiveness. Of course, we want the news to be not something that you must pay for. And not all communities have that. Number 8, do you think that your community is pretty well covered? Is it getting better or worse? I think leaguers might know this on instinct, but again, you could give us notes. And the fact that we don't want the answers for 2 weeks, I mean, I would take a friendly amendment to the survey before we send it out tomorrow. We could do that as well. So please, you could tell me or put it in the chat and we won't miss it. Now here's a big one, question 9. if your league is interested in these journalism issues, we were wondering what the top 3 issues are so that we can step forward as a state league in exploring the things that most people are interested in. We'll revisit this again later, but I wanted to make sure that you all saw question 9 so that you would maybe have an instinct on, you know, what you came for, what you want to work on. And then number 10 is just what is your league? Because I realized at the last minute, of course, I need to know. You know, are we West Slope or you know, where are you? So that's our survey. And in this vein of where we go next, if we get enough information from Colorado to talk about the state of journalism and the quantity of news outlets up or down, that could be piece of this. It may not be piece of this until we see the results of the survey. Other ideas are percolating amongst leagues nationally, and Linda Hutchinson did that research to show us what some other leagues have been exploring. And so she's going to take a few minutes to take us on a dive of some links where leagues are stepping out on the journalism issue.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over to Linda.
Okay. So I wanted to find out what other leagues are doing around journalism and news literacy. So I conducted a highly scientific study by Googling League of Women Voters and journalism. And I came up with, you know, about 12 or 13 sites, but I won't make you look at all of them now.
Well,
This one is the, can everybody see it? You can see my screen? Okay. Okay. So this is the League of Women Voters of Alameda in California. And this is under their Youth Outreach tab. It's called Verify It. And it's a game that combines news literacy knowledge and civics knowledge. And it's geared towards ages 16 to 29 in particular. I mean, adults can do it. I played it. It's fun, but and they have information for teachers. And you can connect by Facebook, Instagram, but I'll just go up here and we'll play the game. So these are the instructions. If it comes up, okay. Well, it did. Oh, there's the instructions. Okay, you see the instructions. You read, you answer the questions, and then down here you get badges and prize. Well, they give you prize. I mean, you get a title. You're an expert examiner or a super citizen. And the goal is to be a thoughtful reader, an informed voter, and an enlightened citizen. So that they have different states. If you click another state, it goes blank. So how about Georgia? And you click play. And okay, so President Trump absolutely supports Colin Kaepernick's NFL return. And then you read all this. And I'm not going to stop and read all of it, but I think that's inaccurate, right? Oh, it's incorrect. Okay. so then you go to the next one. And I can't see. Okay. The White House blocked U.S. Postal Service plan to distribute face masks. So what do you think? Somebody else guess, because I always get these wrong. So what do you think?
I guess true.
True?
It's a guess. I don't know.
Correct. Okay, so see, And then up here, you get 200 points for each question, and you go through all of them. So that's kind of fun. It appeals. And I think I read on here, it's mostly they put it on a mobile for the kids. And then this one is civic aware. This is Wheaton, Illinois. And they have a series, civic awareness series, fighting against fake news, the case for news literacy. And I thought this was interesting because this guy, Peter Adams, is with the News Literacy Project. And the news, it's, you can sign up for News Literacy Project. They have a newsletter and you can take tests, and they just promote news literacy education. But this might be a potential speaker sometime if we needed a speaker, because I've seen this man's name on a couple of league websites where he's spoken to their groups. So and then Know Your News. This is the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. This is a lot of words that you have to go through, but at the bottom, they have a lot of fun things like why your news feed sucks. I thought that was kind of fun. And this is the News Literacy Project over here. You can take their quiz. And I think that quiz is on our news literacy page too, right, Jory? I think it is. The quiz.
Yeah, I think that's one.
And then,
I think it is.
yeah. And then a toolkit for your lazy brain. I haven't watched that, but I should. And then this is from the State Department, and it's if it will come up, it's shows how Russian disinformation works. They target divisive issues, and on this, it's about pineapple on your pizza. And then they target a divisive issue, and then they move their bots into place. And then they start speaking with real people. And then it goes mainstream because so many people are talking about it, then it becomes news. And then it becomes a movement where people protest or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. And then, oh, this is Texas, the League of Women Voters of Hayes County. And they have Ad Fontes. And Ad Fontes Media is a media watchdog that's Colorado based. And they put out a media bias chart that if I can get to it, it's kind of fun to look at if it'll load. Not a member.
A lot of us have seen that bias chart, and you might remember it. It has the logos of all these news outlets. There you go.
Yeah. And it's like on the X, is this the X-axis? It's the reliability. And then on the Y-axis is bias. And then they rate, I think this is new because I was looking at another one today. Seems like it's changed.
Yeah.
What I find
It's at the
interesting
top.
is right there in the middle is no, did somebody say something? No? Okay, right in the middle, the Weather Channel is skewed to the left. I thought that was funny because it's the weather. I don't know. And then you go down and you find like ABC is a little bit to the left, and Wall Street
Weather
Journal.
Channel is because of their position on climate change.
Yeah. And then Wall Street Journal is a little bit to the right. And then they have, I can't see because I think everybody's picture's covering it, but these boxes indicate like if they're in the green, they're more reliable. If they're in the orange, they're less. And then way down here, like this one down here is Charlie Kirk, and there's one with Steve Bannon's War Room, and then I don't know what's over here, Truth Out. So that's kind of fun to look at.
Linda, Adfantas updates their chart about once a month now. It's quite often.
Okay. Yeah. And they have webinars, a webinar series too that I'm taking, except I'm really behind watching the webinars, but I promised myself I'll get caught up by the end of May. And they're really fun. They teach you a lot. I'm not a journalist, so I've learned a lot watching them. Okay, what's this? Okay, this is another one. This is an advertisement from Orange Coast in California, and it's fighting against fake news, and it's got the same man, Peter Adams, Vice President of News Literacy Project. There was one more I wanted to show you. If I can find, oh, this one. This is the role of journalism in preserving democracy, and League of Women Voters of Butte County. They're in California, and I keep waiting for the panel discussion to be available, because this looks like exactly what I think is so important. Some of the topics they're covering include the importance of supporting and maintaining local news organizations. And then they have 4 speakers who, 2 are professors or lecturers, and one's a reporter and one's an editor. So I keep, like I say, I keep going back to the website every once in a while to see if they have the video available. And this is, I don't know how to say this, but it's in Washington State. And they just had a Zoom meeting today on click restraint. And it's all about navigating digital information. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions? Did you want to go back to any of them? Nope. Okay.
So having looked at all of that, and then all the ideas that were in that question number 9 of the survey, I want to open this up to hear what people's thoughts are. Help us make this good. How can we make this better and bring it to the world? Whether it's wrangling some other leagues projects, working with them, alongside them, what's coming to mind? I want to hear the people speak on a direction for us. And you can type in the chat too, if you prefer it.
Sonia?
Yes?
I was on some meeting recently on the league, and was asked, when I said that we were going to have this, your presentation today, I was asked if it's been taken, if you've contacted the local high schools about your website, because it's so interactive.
Yeah. So not yet on this project, but that was something that I had in mind that we could do as one of our measurable goals. If we create, like, how do we know that we accomplish what we set out to do? I was hopeful that we could make a 30 to 40 minute presentation for high school, because once in a while we do get a call, and already we have been invited to come to a gifted student camp that is this July to present to high schoolers at their summer camp about news literacy. And that's a connection we had. And, I accepted the invitation. I don't know what that presentation is. I'm like, sure, we'll be there. So I'm looking to my leaguers to tell us what is best to share with these kids. In my mind, I keep thinking we're reaching young, but that's my mind, because everybody knows I'm always trying to get youth into league. But of course, it very much matters that we bring voters in general into league. And And I just want to hear some of the ideas. And then after the ideas, Linda was going to explain to us the law that just, the bill that was passed into law recently, where Colorado is attacking news literacy through our public education. And she did the work to summarize what that is. And I thought maybe we could consider how we can dovetail with that to be of service to that rollout. That also might be something for us. So is anybody got an idea that hasn't been kicked around or wants to be emphasized? Or
I'd just like to say that the State League is very happy to be a repository in terms of our website. We can get a web page linked to your web page, linked to any other league's work. So, just let us know how we can support.
okay, good. And maybe a reach up to national to see, are they trying to, I mean, might hope that national would be paying attention to what's being done below, and that the big lasso of projects across the nation that are journalism focused could get some attention there.
Absolutely. Sure.
Well, Linda, do you want to go ahead and give us a summary of what we know about Colorado's step out on public education and media literacy?
Okay, let's see. Okay. Summary. Okay, so this is taken from, this is just a summary of the Media Literacy Advisory Committee report submitted to the House and Senate Education Committees of the Colorado General Assembly from December 2019. And you can go here to get the full report. And
It's about 20 pages.
yeah, it's got a lot of appendices. It's got a lot of really good information, but it takes some time to go through it. So during the 2019 legislative session, the Colorado General Assembly passed House Bill 19-1110 about implementing media literacy in elementary and secondary education. And then it created an advisory committee, and the committee was responsible for creating a report. And they had all the different members in the report. It tells you who made up the committee and stuff. I didn't put this in the summary, but it had educators and media experts, librarians. It even had some kids in it. I think the one thing they didn't get was a student from a rural community. I think they wanted a student from a rural community and they didn't have one. But the purpose was that they see a new urgency to assure students understand how to critically evaluate what they see and hear, and identify the difference between factual information, misinformation, and opinion. And students also need to know how to appropriately and responsibly create and act using media, because this is going to take them into their working lives where they'll have to use this stuff too. So the key recommendations, you see them here: systematically address teaching media literacy in all schools, communicate the critical role teacher librarians play in both digital citizenship and media literacy education, convey a consistent, coherent message around media literacy that will engage all stakeholders, ensure media literacy principles are clear and specific in the Colorado academic standards across reading, writing, and civics, share vetted and research-based resources for media literacy education and professional development throughout the state, fund professional development, teacher and student recognition, and grants for programming in media literacy, and form community partnerships to increase the effectiveness of media literacy education. So I bolded the ones that I thought maybe League could play some kind of a role, forming community partnerships or sharing our resources with the people who are responsible for media literacy. And the report, like I said, the appendices are all, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's teacher resources, and it's got the academic standards and the recommendations for the standards. So it's pretty lengthy and pretty involved. That's it.
I would think those teacher resources could be of use for somebody putting together a presentation, you know, if we're for a 30-40 minute thing that we could be invited into schools to do.
Sonia, excuse me. We have a request in the chat, which is pretty good. Jane would like everybody to type in the name of your league and your community, please, into the chat, and we'll save that. And then Kathy Wilson has her hand raised.
Kathy.
Okay, just as an update for all of you, I'm on the Legislative Action Committee, and I've been following the education bills going through the General Assembly. And House Bill 1103 is the implementation of news media education. It has passed the House and is scheduled to be heard in the Senate Education Committee on the 22nd. That committee meeting starts at 1:30. It has not been smooth sailing through the House, so it should be an interesting discussion in the Senate, if you'd like to hear it. But that 2019 put together those resources, and now it's implementing them as just resources, not as a curriculum. Which is really important. So they are optional resources for teachers and schools to use.
And so this implementation would be part of the putting the resources to work, seeing if they get the vote to do that.
Yes, yes, they are resources. They are not a curriculum, and there has been some contention about that in the discussion. So you have to remember that they are purely optional resources. The other bill is Senate Bill 2160-67. That bill is strengthening civics education. And some of this is wrapped into that bill as well. That bill went through the Senate process very easily, very quickly, and I didn't look at the date. I think they're waiting for the long bill to get through the House, which I saw today that the House approved something with that, but that's going to be, they're going to be examining that on the floor of the House next. Yeah, the Senate bill is going to the House next. So.
Those are programs we can Zoom from the Capitol? Is there a link?
Yes, and they're really interesting. In fact, if you go to the League of Women Voters of Larimer County and go to the Legislative Action link in the drop-down menu for our work, I posted links, and you can. One of the links that I posted is the daily record of what's going to be heard that day, or what's at least scheduled to be heard that day. And if you click on audio, you can listen to it.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting.
And the 22nd is when the implementation bill gets heard at
It
1:30.
it gets heard in the Senate Education Committee.
Okay,
And that's when somebody can give testimony. You know, so as a public citizen, you know, you are welcome to put it to either give oral testimony, or you can give written testimony.
okay. So that would be something we could do if we had teachers or just anybody, you know, thoughtful enough to put a statement together.
Mhm.
We could offer testimony if we understand it well enough to know what we're speaking to.
And the league is in support of both of those bills, of you know, the digital media implementation and the strengthening civics education.
Is there possibly opportunity for league to help with the implementation if it passes? Like if we had the list of resources and we decided what our favorites were, and then we charged local leagues with carrying that into their school boards and their districts and saying, here's some really neat pieces, so that anybody pays attention. Because if it's left as a list of resources, I can imagine that it's not going to be getting a lot of attention unless someone like League points to it and puts it under the nose of their teachers.
Mhm. And I know that at least some teachers are aware of it, because I listened to the Boulder League on Saturday morning because of a presentation they had of two high school social studies teachers, one at Broomfield High and one at Estes Valley. And they are aware of those resources on the Colorado Department of Ed. So whether that's widespread, I have no idea. But you know, that's a little anecdotal data from just those two teachers.
Okay. That is an interesting potential direction, and I think it sounds like it would be a really good plan to try to listen in on that. Do other people have comment on, have you been following the news literacy in Colorado? And I'm hopeful that we can get our education teams in on this. It seems like a natural dovetail between education and news literacy. When I talked to some kids about this, they suggested that it would be better taught in English class than in civics class, because English class is what makes them prove that they did their homework to, you know, understand the facts that they were gleaning from. But anyhow, I am hopeful to get some crossover with education. Does anybody have any ideas for you know, what our ed team or anybody's ed team is doing, how we could work together?
We are happy at any time to put out a message, you know, calling together all education teams around the state for some kind of, you know, forum and information sharing session.
Okay. Once we have a suggestion for them, maybe we could do that. So what are people's ideas on how we could measure some accomplishment of our own in this? I had a couple myself. One of them is already not going to work because I had thought those media bias posters, they're so interesting. And I thought, well, if we bought a suite of them and then shared them with local leagues and challenged the leagues to get one into their public library or community college or wherever they might get it, where it might get some eyes on it. But now to see that Advance updates them all the time, well, then the poster, you know, it can't be static. It can't change up that much. So that one's not going to work. But pushing our news literacy page out there, which we should probably put that up again to see if we have any new comments on that. We've made some adjustments since the last time we did this.
Okay.
If one of our team can find that and put that up, we can look at that.
I can.
And it kind of seems that like that news literacy page is akin to what some other leagues have done. They've just done slightly different things. Wondering, do we need, and Linda Mahan, are you still on the call? Linda Mahan, are you listening? Maybe she got off. Do we need to work on a position for leagues? Everything we've leaned on so far is under very general citizens' right to know. And that is what we go into our communities as advocates of news literacy with. Do we need something more than that? Because one of our aims could be to suggest something that we could get some consensus for to take it nationally, so that news literacy is on the forefront of all state leagues and is easy to advocate. I've never been quite sure that citizens' right to know is quite enough. Do people have opinions on that?
I would bet that combined with other positions that I cannot state right now, I bet there are already existing positions that would absolutely support this work, as opposed to requiring a study for a new position.
Well, I was hoping, now this is why I asked for Linda Mann, because she's our, she's
I'm here. I'm here.
here.
I'm
Okay.
here.
Talk to
Trying to
us.
unmute.
Yeah, talk to us,
Yes,
Linda.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm sending you text. Now I'm unmuted. Yes, I would agree with Beth. I don't think we need a new position at all. But the important thing is when we do take action is that our members have a clear understanding of what positions we do have. So having something where we would do some more webinars and send out materials that people would really be grounded in those positions, that equips us then to be very knowledgeable going into taking action.
Okay. And is this anything that we could bring to a national convention that we would be sharing? Like, we're into news literacy and here's the positions, and is there a place for that? I have not been to a national.
Well, I wouldn't wait till the national convention. I would start your networking now. Linda has done an amazing job of pulling together these leagues that have things already. And the other avenue that we have at our disposal is for Karen, when she's on the national president's call, to put something out on that and ask, say, we're about this, who else is? She also has a listserv at her disposal that she can post on. So I think we can use the existing networks that we have to gather a group of people. If you want to bring it to the national convention, that would be the first step, is to really get your grassroots coalition together of who's done what and what it is then that you might want to bring to the national convention.
Agree completely.
So maybe a good next step is looking for volunteers to reach out to some of these leagues that are in Linda Hutchinson's list of leagues that have done anything on the topic.
Sure.
And let them know that we're
Exactly.
and what we've got.
Sonia,
Exactly.
excuse me, Sonia. Mary Dietrich has her hand up.
Okay.
Thank you. You know, I'm 1,000% behind everything we're doing. I think that one of the next steps forward might be to really clarify what it is we would like the National League to do. In terms of, we've got two topics here. We've had this discussion locally before about, do we want the National League to do something about the future of journalism, or do we want to talk about a news literacy involvement on the National League side? And to clearly kind of draft a position, not a position, but an action that would require advocacy. I think that's the next step we have to take. I'm more than happy to take on the task of searching for various positions in the national positions that would support something that we want to do. But I think before we reach out and try to establish a grassroots consensus, we have to have something that they're going to agree to. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet.
Good point. Very, very clear. Yeah.
So then we could make a list of all the leagues doing things, and we could make a list, as Mary's offered, of positions that could apply. And then with those two, will we give those to Karen, or we talk those up ourselves? I mean, between the two, we're trying to come up with something specific that's,
That we want national to do, yes. What do we want? What do we want national to do to support this program and action?
I think you might tap into, yeah, Sonia, you might contact those. It looks like most of them are about news literacy. Linda, would you say that? Linda Hutchinson, would you say that?
Yes, I would say, I think most of the pages I found were about news literacy, but there were a few that were about journalism, journalism and its role in democracy, I guess is what a few of them were, but the majority were about news literacy.
Has,
So you could start with them, contacting them, and maybe you could put out two networks, one on news literacy and one on democracy in journalism and the role of democracy, and just see, we're interested in these two themes. Can you join us on a call some night to talk about this? We're thinking about how we might move forward to the national level and take this wider than just us locals working on it.
I think that that's kind of the way I see it, because I think they need to be kept separate. And I think there's a lot of interest in I have a lot of interest in the topic of journalism and its role in a democracy. So I would really like to see that pursued, and the news literacy, but I think they have to stay separate. They need to be kept separate for now.
And would we turn this into public education? Like, if we can build a program that we would take into schools, and that we would make a list of speakers that we know that would be willing to step out on the topic, and then we build a reservoir of recorded talks on the topic and keep that? Is that kind of where we're headed in a moment? Education.
Certainly it could go in that direction. But I think that's an add-on to getting your league network.
Yeah.
And I think in talking to the league network, you will find that some of these leagues, I believe in California, are doing some of that in their schools too.
Well, yeah, both, as you mentioned, Karen has access to the state president's listserv, as do I, as well as monthly calls. And are they monthly, Karen? Yeah. And then I also do a monthly state EDs call. So we're happy to use, either or both of those networks. The state president's call kind of, or definitely overlaps with the ED call.
We had a couple of comments in the, excuse me, the chat section. Deb Stetler says she agrees with the two-pronged approach of literacy and journalism. And Fran Feinerman says, if we don't include social media, we will not reach the coming generations. And so true. Agree with that. Both of those.
I think social media is part of this, because news outlets are in social media as well. That's where the youth is finding them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going there for news.
Also, Oh, and Kathy has her hand up. Kathy Wilson.
Yeah.
This is, maybe Linda would call this an add-on, but I think what you might want to do and what people might be interested in is contacting sister organizations to go in and be a speaker. So you might want to contact the AAUW groups around the state or now, or there are just all sorts of groups that are looking for speakers. And so this might this might be a way of getting the word out.
Yeah, we've talked about, actually Sonia and I have talked about formally kind of reviving, or the need to formally revive the Speakers Bureau.
Mhm.
And if we had a planned presentation that was already vetted by all of us on the things that we like the most from our leagues and across the
Mhm.
nations, the stuff that Linda's gathered for us, we could just make that a pat presentation that would be ready to go.
Mhm.
We could make one for adult and one more for kind of a high school format.
I think speaking with adults is really important because of what we were seeing in the last couple of years, last few years about people's ability to look at the media that they're being exposed to and making some judgments about it. This has been taught in high schools and middle schools for a while, even though it sounds like it's a new kind of thing. It's actually been in state standards to be taught. But I really think that if we can get the word out and make it in a really engaging way that would get adults to, just like what Linda was showing with that one website, get people engaged and playing with articles and making some judgments and then getting some feedback on it.
Yeah.
It would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I
Mary-
think the one critique I had of the website that had the game that we played, the Verify It, is that it was under their youth outreach, and so that limits
Mhm.
who they're going to reach.
Mhm.
Mary Dietrich
I
has
guess
a
one of
comment.
my comments would be, I don't think we have to be careful that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel either.
Mhm.
There's so many good resources out there on news literacy already. And one of the things our news literacy page tries to do is share those links that we have vetted as reliable and thoughtful with other people. So I'll go back to, I'm not sure what our purpose is, although, having taught argument for 20 years, I would say we have to find a focus. And one focus we might want to do, which is kind of outside, it's narrower than what a lot of the other groups are doing out there, is election news literacy. And try to focus on an area like that where we become the expert on one part of news literacy that's close to the League of Women Voters. And I think that might be one way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that focus, but we don't need to expend our energy. We don't have the expertise or the media capabilities, the web capabilities to create a lot of these programs, that quizzes and everything that other sites have already done. So I think we need to find out how we as a league can provide a unique service to groups, educators, adults, those kinds of people.
And maybe this implementation bill would show us if there are gaps. I mean, maybe it would be well covered. If this passes, they'll be notifying all of Colorado school districts. But if there's some gaps there, or if we can, carry water for the state to the school districts, we might be able to serve in that capacity rather than generating the content. I hear you saying, Mary, that of course we're not the experts of it. I am still curious about the quantity of news. I mean, today, 47 journalists laid off of HuffPost. And I reached to Senator Bennett's office 3 times, was promised a call back from somebody who knew anything about the bill to possibly find funding for rural media, or, I mean, I don't even really know particularly what the bill intends to do. Nobody's reaching back. Maybe that's the question that Karen Sheik should take to a president's call. If I don't want to, it's a totally separate piece, and yet I feel like it's a very important piece, and some came to the game for that piece, and it's not something that already has a ton of content the way that the news literacy, you know, you can just curate news content with that. But this idea of the demise of what was traditional journalism and what that means, is that something we'd take into a president's call to find out? Or I'm not sure how to, are we just going to cut that piece off, or how do we advance further on it?
When you talk about the demise of the media, yes, I think you're seeing a lot of cutbacks, but are those cutbacks occurring because there are other platforms that are being used more frequently now than the printed page? And so we don't necessarily, these organizations don't necessarily need the levels of staff that they have in the past. I mean, I think we could all argue that when you cut back on your journalistic staff, that certainly makes it difficult to be able to cover adequately all of the areas that maybe perhaps need to be covered. But, you know, I think a lot of it is something that the platforms have changed. Now, that, in my opinion, may not necessarily be a totally good thing, but it also is the reality of the world that we're living in now.
Well, here's how I understand it, Karen, is because the platforms are these monopoly giants, Google and Facebook and everything, and American journalism is not state sponsored. It's run by advertising mostly. And the advertisers captured more eyes, and they all ran to Facebook, Google, the big boys, not because the news was better, but because they got more eyes there. And so then the print media and the traditional things, you know, the news of yore has shrunk proportionately, not because people didn't want it anymore, but because our news is privatized. And so public funded news versus private news is a fascinating conversation. And it's separate from news literacy. I'm just not sure if Bennett's office won't talk to me, I don't know what to do with it. And I'm willing to give up, but I like that discussion the most of all, really.
Yeah, I think we should keep trying there, and I'm happy to help in whatever way I can. I think I do have an AIDS contact information, Sonia, because I think that is something that we should follow up on as kind of an arm of this discussion myself.
Well, since I'm in Hawaii and the Hawaiian senator is also a sponsor of this bill, I could try from that angle.
See if you can get him. Yeah.
Was anybody on our presentation on Monday night with Dave Migoya from the Denver Post? He's the investigative reporter that broke the story of the scandal, the harassment and discrimination claims coming out of the Colorado judiciary. You know, he said that, so what did he say? 350, was it reporters or staff from the Post down to 63? And
with a substantial number.
What's terrifying to me, obviously, is the idea that he broke this story. And what if it had already gone on for 2 decades? So what will happen when those people aren't there to protect our democracy?
But then you have the Colorado Sun that was created from the reporters who were fired from the Denver Post, and their coverage is really good, I think. It's the articles, many of the articles are long and very detailed. So it's not black and white, okay? It's complex.
Agree.
What's happening as this develops.
And I really like the Colorado Sun too, and I paid to get it, and there's a difference. Like if you
Yeah.
are just a poor person, if you're not paying for news, I'm not sure where the best source is.
Well, and the money is key here. You know, one of the things that has been the downfall of journalism is advertising money, because it certainly doesn't survive on subscriptions. And when the advertisers see social media and television being much more effective in terms of bringing in revenue, look at the real estate market. I mean, 10 years ago, you'd pick up a newspaper and you'd see pages and pages and pages of real estate ads. And now it's all online. There's nothing left for print media to publish. And personnel ads are the same way. So even just something as what looks as minor is personnel ads and real estate ads are gone from print media. And that's a huge reason why print media has suffered so much.
But don't you think part of that too is that that platform is really an easily searchable platform?
Oh, absolutely. I don't blame them for doing that. I love going on realtor.com and looking for houses. You know, it's so much easier to navigate and buying a car is the same way, you know. Why would you spend 2 hours looking at newspaper ads when you can go online and put in exactly what you want and find it?
Well,
I really recommend the Twitter site called Zillow Gone Wild. Somebody takes all of the craziest house ads on Zillow. It's really entertaining.
Zillow Gone Wild. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
Well, with state-sanctioned journalism versus the ad-driven model and the loss of the fairness doctrine, there's just so much going on right now that I want us to look at it. I almost think that League's role, that news literacy is being covered, has a lot, and we could just keep, helping push that out there. But it's pushing medicine. People are either gonna, understand that they're biased or not. But a lot of people don't know about what a kick in the teeth journalism has gotten, and fairness doctrine, people barely remember what that was, and was it good or was it bad, and what's that done? And when I ask these teenagers, well, if there was public, if your tax dollars were going to go to journalism, what do you think that criteria should be for a publication to ask for public funds? And one of them said, well, no opinion page. I wouldn't want an opinion page then. And I had to think about that. And I just think it's fascinating, because I absolutely would think public funding for an opinion page if you had a fairness doctrine. And that just seems like it's really important to voting. And that gets to this idea that Mary had, what helps us with voting, because of course we're League, and that should be a point. I don't know how we should, we're at 6 o'clock and I want to let everybody off. We have some good ideas. Do we have anybody who wants to volunteer to, Mary's offered to reach out to her senator, and maybe, what are other people feeling like they have in them to volunteer for? Connections. I know Linda Mahan mentioned a connection for a potential presentation, but project and things that people want to work on. What's the low hanging fruit?
Well, I can contact, this is more about the journalism piece, but Linda gave me the name of someone she knows in Butte County where they did the the program on journalism and democracy, and I can contact her and see if I can at least watch their recording and stuff, and maybe we can get some ideas from that, where to go. I think this is more, well, I did notice, I don't know, this might be beyond my capabilities, but I did notice that the Minnesota League of Women Voters had a program on journalism I didn't show you. And one of the sponsors of that bill with Michael Bennett and the
Okay.
senator from Hawaii
Uh-huh.
is Amy Klobuchar, and she's the senator from Minnesota. It might be worthwhile trying to contact her too. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a link to
Yeah.
that discussion. A list of positions that could apply. Was that something you wanted to do, Mary?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, that would be great. And then Linda, you're already 2/3 of the way with a list of everything that's been done by leagues.
Yeah, I have that. I have it in a Word doc too. So,
Okay, so
And-
maybe
and
those two
Linda-
things together.
okay.
Yeah, and Linda, if you
Uh-huh.
have some more of those, I didn't catch all of the different county and state leagues, but I have a pretty vast network. So if you can't find contacts, links to articles or events, and you want to get back to me and tell me, do you have a contact in Alameda? Well, yes, I can come up with one in Alameda.
Okay.
That's the news literacy, I know, but if there were some that were more in the journalism angle,
Okay.
I'd be
Yeah.
glad to provide you some names.
Okay. That would be great.
And maybe we can put this in a package, the list of positions, the list of things being done. Beth, would you think we could put this in an email package that would go out to education teams and league leaders across Colorado?
You bet.
Okay.
And Sonia, Deb Stetler is volunteering to find out what Mesa County is currently involved with in these areas.
Okay.
And
Anyone-
I'd like Mary Dietrich to also get her 2 definite focus points really defined. Or
Okay.
maybe there's a 3rd one. I think we need that because that's the top frame that
Mhm.
everything
Yeah.
then falls under. We need to really be clear about those. I think even before we start reaching out to other local leagues or state leagues to ask what they're doing. We need to say, this is what we're about. We noticed on your website you're doing this. Would you like to talk further with others who have this interest?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then the survey that I shared in the beginning, I welcome people to say that these questions are a little bit off, or you could just answer it and we could share the link to that survey in the email that would go out. We'd just do one big email that had positions and things other leagues are doing, and then the survey that we would like to see some answers to see if it gave us a direction for how we could help Colorado in more of the the quantity of news and that side of the journalism equation. Okay, sounds like a pretty good plan, and we'll share emails with everybody who wants it when we pull these lists together, and they'll come out from the state.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for
all of
sharing
you.
an hour.
Hey, just for everybody that's not in Fort Collins, we got about an inch out there now.
Oh, wow.
Mary,
That's about the same in
Mary's
Denver.
probably gonna go have a drink on the beach tonight.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Bye.
just great.
Bye.
That's great, Sonia. Thank you, Linda. Just great. Really impressive.
Bye.
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 Bye.